I was too young for the first internet revolution, but now in my professional work, I've never felt the same level of the disruption like I felt in the last 6 months.
Do you think the path to wealth in 2026 will not be altcoin trading and launching your own token, but launching your own vibe-coded project?
Yes, I'm very bullish Solana ecosystem. I think it will translate into price as well. But like the ecosystem is the most active builder ecosystem right now in crypto.
We finally established as a consensus that crypto is most suitable for financial applications. All the talk about using blockchains for supply chain, the whole DentaCoin bullshit that started in 2017, like we have confirmed that this is completely dead in 2025. GM. How are things going?
Bit tired, but otherwise good.
What's the state of the market? Have you been following along the Jerome Powell indictment by the DOJ?
I haven't clicked the video yet, but I've seen it on my feed. What's the gist?
Well, it's pretty Banana Republic type sheet. I mean, basically, the DOJ is suing Powell over all of these Federal Reserve office building renovations or something. But basically, it is lawfare because he is not lowering interest rates as fast as the current administration would like them to be lowered. At least that is what he implies, and that is what many other people imply. The video itself is not really that spectacular. The significant thing about it is that he, as a Fed chair, is like explicitly standing up to the administration in a public fashion, which I think overall is respectable. And I would say that Jerome Powell, even though, I mean, many of us in crypto, I guess including us, are not the biggest fans of central banking and the Federal Reserve itself, most people in the finance, econ, crypto Twitter bubble can agree that Jerome Powell has done quite a good job over the past few years in like, fulfilling the tasks that the Federal Reserve is mandated to fulfill. And also in his communications, I think he's been a very direct, honest, and actor with integrity. So I kind of find it sad to see him go in April or May when his term ends. It definitely is the end of an era.
The US seems to be in a lot of inner conflict right now.
I mean, that is nothing new. I think that has existed all the way throughout 2025 already. This is just continuation. I also don't think that this ICE shooting is like anything breathtakingly new. It's just another unnecessary tragedy in a very polarized, very split apart society. I mean, it accelerates the overall trend of division, and yes, there is a chance that could unleash into civil war or whatever. I have personally held the stance for a few months now that I do not think that there is any path to reconciliation between like the I don't like to use these terms, but basically between the political left and the political right in most Western countries. I think in the US, it is the most extreme way, but also if you look at Germany or some of the other European countries, I personally find it very challenging to see any path how like compromises can be found, how a debate culture that is honest and open can be restored without like all of his frustration, without all of his anger just like releasing somehow. Because if you talk to people, like as soon as you try to be somewhat differentiated, you get punished by both sides. Both sides are in a complete bubble of media isolation, a way that things get presented and like torn out of context. I mean, I'm currently on not on like US mainland soil, but in Puerto Rico. And you see it here as well. It's just like all of these discussion you have, or you feel like you're talking to kindergarten child. Like it's nonsensical.
Yeah. This is the type of stuff that made me off ramp and leave traditional news and media because it's like so depressing. Like clearly there's no intent of murdering any officer. She was just like trying to drive away, and then like the way you get slaughtered for that. Not talking about like the instrument of the left or whatever. That's clearly, I couldn't care less about that. It's just like, that's what's kind of like the value of life. You know what I mean? Like, if the value of life is that low and you make up arguments of like officers' lives being threatened or whatever, which is like complete bullshit. It kind of frustrates me a lot, which is why I default to not wanting to consume that type of stuff and just like focus on what's in front of me. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, you're right. It's been chaotic in the US for a longer time. However, I feel like the chaos is at a local maximum again.
How do you think this whole stuff is going to unfold, though? Like, why would it peak now, and how would it reconcile, or how would it calm down?
So my observation is had a decent amount of support despite all the tariff bullshit and crime and whatever is going on, because the supporters kind of like are diehard Trump supporters. But I feel like that's the type of thing as an American where you say, okay, like that's too much. Like, I'm a Republican, and not me, but just like in general. You're a Republican, you support Trump, but if that happens, you're like, okay, like I can't stay behind that. And I think it's relevant with regards to midterms. It also creates an attack vector for the opposition and foreign forces to plant 2, 3 more of these cases. I think then the midterms are kind of like more endangered. That's my read. I don't think we're there yet, but I'm seeing kind of like it always starts with like small things igniting, catching fire, and becoming big. I also, it's not at like George Floyd levels or anything like that yet, but I don't know. It feels like it's things are at risk right now. So I'm kind of closely watching, observing the situation without trying to consume too much media every day. But yeah, it's wild.
Do you think this is actually affecting markets, though, specifically US markets? I mean, as long as this doesn't spiral out into a civil war. Yeah, I mean, it is societally undesirable, but is it relevant for financial markets in the grand scheme of things? I kind of don't think so.
I do think so. I think there's different things. So first of all, there are definitely groups, like I'm hearing more and more from certain kind of like subgroups, let's say, that there's discussion about like getting armed for a doom scenario. The other thing is like, if you look at the markets, I think, gold and silver going up that much is probably the symptom of it. I think otherwise there would be slightly more confidence in the stock market, although the stock market is doing perfectly fine. But I think like gold and silver are surprisingly high right now. And I think that's probably the kind of like best indicator for unstable times.
Yeah, the S&P is basically at all-time highs. Nasdaq is very close to all-time highs. Even the German DAX is at all-time highs. The French CAC 40 is also very close to all-time highs. Then Nvidia still a little bit off. Meta still a little bit off. Tesla a little bit off. Google at all-time highs. Microsoft still a little bit off. Robinhood has consolidated since October. MicroStrategy still down in the gutter, but seems like it's somewhat forming a bottom, with gold all-time highs at almost 4,600 an ounce, and silver at $84. I'm not sure if that's an all-time high, but still, yeah, could be an all-time high. I don't know, at least for the last like 20 years or something. So I would say that these are all indicators for rising geopolitical tensions, rising societal tensions, but especially gold and silver are usually more towards the end than the beginning of such a rally when they go as parabolic as they do. I mean, I'm not a macro expert, I'm not a commodity expert, but I've listened to some people who are much more experienced in that, mostly the guys from 1000X, the Blockworks podcast, which I think always have pretty good market takes. And I mean, pretty much having like one of them has an oil background and like was a commodities trader. And I do think that the reason makes sense. Also, if you saw end of last year, I think it was in Singapore or somewhere in Asia, where people, like retail people, were lining up at physical gold stores to buy gold bars. So I do think that we are still in for more global volatility, but I don't know if the risk reward for going super heavy into commodities is still there. I think it does make sense to have a little bit of exposure. Like, why not? These are assets that are like less politicized in a way and provide a decent hedge. So I do think they have a part in everybody's portfolio. But like at this price, I don't like I wouldn't want to put like 30-40% of my port into gold.
No way.
Like that's like buying Bitcoin all-time highs. It's the risk reward is not there.
Long term, fine. Short term, agree. Not a good strategy, probably. But we spoke about this earlier. It kind of depends on your port size. If you're managing 7-8 figures, it's kind of significantly different than if you're managing 5-6 figures. If you're managing 5-6 figures, I'd say, yeah, like things like gold right now don't make any sense. It's like all-time high. You'd rather wait for consolidation, pullback. If you're managing larger amounts and you're thinking like 30, 50 years time horizon, probably doesn't matter. You can just like keep DCAing. Jen, I'm kind of lazy with these things. It's like I'm sure there is a good way to make sense of everything. I'm just like not there mentally because like I'm focused so much again on like what's in front of me with regards to things I want to ship. But definitely like very agreeable. Also, you're right. Like everything is all-time high except crypto. So
I think the whole to make the pivot into our crypto predictions, I think the entire becoming millionaire through altcoin trading thesis and behavior is pretty much dead. And I still don't think that it is going to return because people are way too concerned about other things right now. It's like they want to get by somehow. If they, what the significant difference to 2021 is that in 2021 you at least had some initial success when you tried doing that, or at least a significant fraction of the people who tried to make money with crypto had some initial success, which then lured them into doubling down, and eventually most of them still lost out. But at least there was a point in time when they were up significantly. Whereas in 2025 and 2026, you don't even get that initial win in the casino, which makes the entire casino operation very unattractive. So people pivot elsewhere. And I also think that in the younger generation, so like people my age and younger, there is somewhat of a counter trend and a resurgence of wanting to build something real. Like, I don't know anybody who genuinely, in my age cohort, genuinely enjoys like working on only digital stuff, because it is all very temporary. It is all very like it is self-created solution to a self-created problem in many cases. And I think the meaning and joy that people can derive from doing something physical, maybe not professionally, but maybe as a like side thing, is just much higher. And people are deprived of like any real world experience. And I think that there's a big counter trend emerging in 2026, which will translate into less trading activity for these super online and super crypto native assets.
agree. The one thing that I think applies to many subcultures or sub branches, basically something is happening which is fairly hard to predict. Like think of the initial rise of Bitcoin. Like who predicted that? No one. People that forgot their keys got crazy rich, or they didn't find the keys. And then there's like, programmable stuff came up, Ethereum, and then like early ETH crowd. But like no one saw that coming. And then there was like 500 copycats that tried to copy ETH. That basically all went to zero and failed. Again, the next kind of like fast execution thing that succeeded in my like fast forwarding, skipping a bunch of things, obviously, was Solana. In between, we had like VC raises of things. They were all down only. Retail suffered a lot. Then we had meme coins. Meme coins like initially super interesting, had like some of the original crypto ethos, which is why I got interested in them. Now pure extraction schemes. It's like you don't even have to like. It makes zero sense to look at meme coins because there's a 98 minimum, but I think 99% chance that it's a designed extraction scheme. So when something happens for the first time, it's interesting. But when there is copycats that try to formalize into a category, it's mostly bullshit. And that's why it's really hard to catch a good trade, because you have to be really deep in something. I mean, GME and kind of Roaring Kitty is a good example. Like, no one cares about your story until you win, basically, right? So he was like probably a no one, small subredditor. But after he won, he's like goated status and now has followers. And people try to do the same. Like people try to like look at other stock and made similar posts, but it's not the same. Like it was just like an attempt to copy. Also, it attracts beta players, if you know what I mean. Like the first movement usually comes from like A-tier players and people who really like don't care about like a trend or following a narrative. They're like original thinkers. But once their thinking gets validated and materializes into value, it attracts a lot of like B players, C players, a lot of like copycats. And then it's like, usually then that's also when retail comes in and retail is like, oh, like this is all bullshit. Anyways, long-winded way of saying, 100% agree. The altcoin trade is dead. It's been dead for at least 2 years, in my opinion. And exceptions, I would say, validate the thesis. Obviously, there's always going to be exceptions, but it's like 1 in a million, literally. And even like prediction markets, right? Like if you start getting into prediction markets to build something, it's cool. If you start to get into prediction markets to make money on arbitraging different markets, I would say it's already late, because that was like the edge was a couple months ago before everyone vibe coded a prediction market arbitrage bot. So agree with you. I think crypto is like in a crisis. Many OGs actually, and this is personally disheartening for me as well, having been in the space for over 10 years. But many OGs throw the towel and basically acknowledge that crypto's filled with scammers and like stupid people who just want to get rich quick. Very little of the original ethos left. And if at all, you'll find it in like Bitcoin or Monero, but not anything fancy.
Maybe let's go through the price predictions of a couple of the major assets. There are pulley markets for quite a few. I've looked at some of them heading into the episode. So let's start with Bitcoin. Is there anything you think is mispriced in this market, or what is your outlook for 2026?
I mean, if I were to make a prediction, I would say sideways. I feel like we've gone down a lot. I feel like there's potential to go down a little bit more, Bitcoin wise, 60, 70K max. I don't think we'll see all-time highs in 2026. But at the same time, all of my predictions were wrong. All of the like cycle peak indicators were wrong. I have no idea what part of the cycle we are. I definitely know it's the weirdest cycle ever. Everyone acknowledges that. It's also, so that's why like sideways is probably the safest bet. But if I were to pick a price, I'd say like 90, 100K, probably.
for the end of the year, or?
I mean, I don't know. But I'd say, like, again, assuming it's going to go sideways, whether it's at 93K or K, I have no idea when, but I feel like things will move sideways within a range of 72K and probably start to slowly go up towards the end of the year. Probably consolidation first and then like go up.
I think it's much more likely to see, if we see upwards price action in 2026, to see that in the first half peaking into summer rather than the later half of 2026. Because if
Why?
we look at macro and the midterms coming up, if the Trump administration has any economic ammunition left to shoot, they'll have to shoot it now. The fragility of the US economy relative to the rest of the globe is only increasing. Societal tensions are only increasing. So I think if risk markets, particularly crypto, want to make that one last push higher, they rather make it quickly. I think, surprisingly, people are still pricing a new all-time high in 2026 at slightly above 40%. Because I think the all-time high was 125 or 126,000 last year. So that is sitting somewhere between 40 and 47%. So between 120 and $140,000. And I would say that's reasonably high. I do think it's kind of nice to see at least some optimism and some faith returning to the crypto markets. It just makes this industry much more bearable than the entire doomerism vibe that we've seen, especially throughout December. I mean, on the downside, if we see a bear market, I think it makes sense for it to bottom somewhere between like 65 to 55, 45,000. I personally would be quite surprised if we drop down below 45,000 or like 40,000 again. It's just like Bitcoin has matured as an asset. Just look at the volatility annualized of 2025 compared to last cycle. I mean, there's quite a bit of difference. If you just look at the chart on like a weekly candle basis, it looks quite different, but just the way it is consolidating, then slowly creeping up, consolidating, whereas you had these very crazy blow off tops and then rapid declines in 2021 and previously. I mean, Bitcoin is not going back to becoming a retail driven asset. I mean, retail just doesn't have that money right now. Cost of living crises are continuing. It's not like people are in the same financial condition as they were in Q1 and Q2 2021, where everybody was bored, locked at home, didn't spend any money on like outside activities because we were all locked in, and even got some kind of airdrop money from the government in the US from COVID. And you cannot really recreate these circumstances. I think even if we saw a tariff dividend or something similar that has been talked about last year by the Trump administration, it could definitely alleviate risk assets, but I kind of would be surprised if it led to a similar euphoria and mania as we've seen in 2021.
I agree. The other thing why some of these numbers are not as relevant is, for example, if Bitcoin were to dip to 35,000, it would probably be in a matter of a flash crash or something, right? So I don't think that these are levels where it would sustain for multiple months. Famous last words, probably gonna drop 2 months. But no, jokes aside, like, I think that's why the actual number doesn't matter too much. I think what matters more is whether we are in consolidation or in price discovery or kind of like expecting a retrace. And the simplest trades are probably the hardest to make because they're the most boring. But this is why, I don't know if you remember, but like, this is why I can't wait to have like somewhat verified trading agents that just do that for me. Like, I feel like that should be a zero-sum game in the sense that, like, I mean, zero-sum game is not the right framing here, but it's nothing I want to think about. It's just like, you know, I don't know. I find it weird that I have to explore whether I put my money in Aave or in another yield-bearing contract, or I put it in T-bills, or I wrap it in something fancy and put it on another ecosystem to farm points. It's like this. I mean, yes, these have different risk profiles, but at the end of the day, I just want to I mean, risk profile is probably the only thing that matters here. But assume there's like 2-3 different risk profiles. I just want to fire and forget. And like one thing that a friend told me the other day, which I wasn't really aware of, but like imagine how much yield is left on the table by just holding USDC. Like if you would take your USDC and mint max USDC or like max USD, you would earn 3.8% on it just from like treasuries, US. Obviously, like again, with 4 or 5 figures may not be the most important thing, but if you're trading larger amounts or you're managing larger treasuries, it's nuts to hold USDC. It's literally crazy.
I think this is a little bit over extended because most of the stable coins held as a completely liquid asset are held as a completely liquid asset on purpose. And these 3%, if you are any actively trading institutions, like it doesn't really make the cut for you to like try to lend that stuff on Aave or something if you needed to shift around margin or just to have it like as a backbone of liquidity.
That's
And I
not
would
what I
say
mean.
that
That's not what I mean. What I mean is, Circle is making the yield, and there are solutions which are highly liquid where you just mint max USD, which is just a token representation on chain, and you are getting the yield, and it's highly liquid, and you can turn back into USDC anytime. It's just an API. It takes seconds. So that's what I mean. I'm just talking about like the stupidest US Treasuries yield that doesn't require anything instead of holding pure USDC. Yeah.
I mean, if you look at DeFi Llama, I do think that the market cap of on-chain yield-bearing stablecoins has increased quite a bit in 2025. I think the most prominent one in the past has been Ethena, that has obviously decreased quite a bit over the past. So they peaked right before October 10th, and after that, when a lot of the DeFi looping trades started unraveling, the supply has collapsed by almost half. So there is some reflexivity to it, but I do think that for the entities who care about earning yield on stablecoins, they now have ample opportunity to do so across all types of the risk spectrum. But maybe to come back to some price predictions really quickly, I definitely think that there is more volatility priced into ETH if you look at it compared to the odds for various Bitcoin predictions. I find it interesting that there's more than half chance that ETH is going to revisit below $2,000 in 2026. Do you have an ETH outlook, or how are you positioned that way?
Too big to die. Nothing. It won't outperform anything.
So I think that ETH BTC will also continue to decline in 2026.
100%. I mean, short term, always hard to tell. 26, probably. But I think the time where ETH will outperform BTC is over. And yes, there's always going to be like an exception month where ETH outperforms BTC. But I think it will not be significant. I am exposed to ETH and generally like bullish in the grand scheme of things, but it wouldn't be my first pick within crypto these days.
I agree with the general outlook. I think it is hard to make a high conviction, directionally long bet on ETH asset. I think 2026 will be a good year for ETH ecosystem, with the L1 having scaled, transaction fees being lower, overall less kind of ideology heavy behavior in crypto, and crypto increasingly being recognized as a technology that where it makes sense to use it, just use it. Don't overthink it. Um, I also think that RWAs will grow significantly and anything tokenized on chain in 2026. And ETH is still the major hub for that. Of course, not all will flow to ETH. I think Solana will do reasonably well. I also think that Hyperliquid as an ecosystem has the chance to do reasonably well. It might get battle tested a little more this year compared to last year. But overall, I think when it just comes to adoption and people actually using the tech, we are in for a good year.
I agree.
What's your Solana outlook?
A little bit more bullish, nothing significant. I think like these numbers are not really meaningful to me. For me, it's like $200 is roughly the level that Solana needs to maintain. But if it will like go into price discovery, it's like gonna be the 1K, 2K levels and not like 380 or something. So I think like it again, like $200, $100, between 100 and 200, maybe even lower, probably like in consolidation. But as it goes into price discovery, it should be much more. I'm very bullish Solana ecosystem. I think it will translate into price as well. But like the ecosystem is the most active builder ecosystem right now in crypto.
I'd like to bet against Solana hitting 2000 if it makes a new all-time high. I think it will.
Not in 2026, but like the next price discovery period. That's how I think about it, by the way. I don't think about it in like hard dates as in like, oh, it's like December 2026. It's more like Solana's in consolidation, like most coins, and the moment it breaks out and goes into price discovery, like some people chirp that that's happening with Monero right now, it will, yeah, like it will find a new price and then top at some crazy number.
Another interesting one is whether stablecoins will hit 500 billion before 2027, which I think is quite highly priced at 43%. So it definitely has an overall bullish outlook. Right now, it's sitting at 300 billion. Do you have any take on this market?
Easy 500 billion. That's a clear yes for me. Thank you for sharing this market. I'm happy. I'm gladly buying yes on 44 cents on a dollar. That's free money.
I wouldn't say it is free money. I mean, I'm definitely bullish stablecoins, but for the supply to grow by 70, 80% within a year, that is still quite ambitious. We definitely have some stuff lined up that could benefit it.
Before, see, this is tricky with fucking prediction markets. Before 2027. I thought like it includes 2027.
No, that's pretty clear. It is within 2026.
Yeah, I know.
That's settled. January 1st.
It is clear at a second look, but like first look, I was like, oh, like in the next 2 years, 100% yes. The thing is, we have technology now. So the example I gave you wasn't cap. You can mint max USDC or max USD through an API. And it's not so interesting if you convert USDC into max USD, since it's like a zero-sum game. However, we obviously need net new traditional dollars entering crypto, and it's kind of hard to tell if it's going to be over 500 billion, but generally like the number will quadruple in the next years, probably like in the next 5 years, in my opinion.
I find this a hard market to have conviction on in either side, because if it was just dependent on is whatever large bank starting to issue a stablecoin, so when it is more geared towards the crypto native usage of stablecoins, I am somewhat skeptic that this will hit 500 billion in 2026. However, since that would also include Scott Bessent and the US Treasury starting to issue tokenized T-bills wrapped as a stablecoin, I mean, they could issue 500 billion of that in a week, and that market would be settled. Or if suddenly some major bank starts to tokenize all of their money market funds with like a stablecoin-esque instrument, I think in that case it would be very easy to hit the 500 billion mark.
The other day I saw an interesting tweet, which was something along the lines of like, prediction markets will never work. It's all insider information. And then someone retweeted that saying, that's the point. Like, the point of prediction markets is to get as close to the truth as possible, regardless of whether it's insiders or it's kind of like publicly available information. And I thought that perspective is interesting because if you're an insider and you have access to privileged information, you will 100%, I mean, not 100%, but like it's the rational thing to do from a commercial perspective to play the market. And yeah, it's highly illegal and so on. Like I'm ignoring that obviously on purpose, but like I feel like it's a good market to watch actually, the prediction market one.
Mm.
The stablecoin one, sorry. What's
What
this?
is your outlook on prediction markets as a sector for 2026?
I'm bullish prediction markets. I've been bullish prediction markets before the hype. Prediction markets, in my mind, crypto is not rocket science. Crypto will not revolutionize much other than it is the best technology to price things. So things is very broad on purpose. Things can be RWAs, securities, tokens, attention, my time, whatever. But I think it doesn't make sense for certain things to be a token. For example, like what we're looking at right now. I mean, there used to be like 10 pump fund tokens for that, and probably there still is. Every word out of Trump's mouth is a token. That's so stupid. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Pricing what he's about to say makes sense. And pricing the implications of what he's saying also makes sense. But these should be prediction markets. So that's why I'm generally bullish prediction markets as like a crypto enabled vehicle to price information.
I agree. I'm not sure if the valuations and just the general hype and excitement around prediction markets will continue to grow to the same extent as they did in 2025, but the paradigm of them and their mechanisms, I think, will just grow in societal relevance. I mean, we are living in a very fast-paced world where now also with the rise of AI-generated content, there's not really any bullshit tax to people spitting stuff out and not bearing any consequence. So the ability to put your money where your mouth is a very valuable one. And I do think that prediction markets are exceptionally suited to run on blockchain. So I'm personally very, very optimistic when it comes to that sector.
Yeah, it needs to be 24/7 accessible. Again, like insider information is a feature, not a bug, right? Because like if you're putting money here, you're gambling anyways. Like you need to be comfortable with your money going to zero. And at the same time, this will not kill meme coins. Like you can't make 1,000x through a prediction market. If you buy yes at a cent and it resolves to yes, that's 100x, but that's like probably as good as it gets.
Well, I do think that they are going to introduce parlays very soon
What is
because
parlays?
so it's basically stacking several predictions on top of each other, and they all have to hit in order for you to win. Since you're then, let's say if you're betting on
Interesting.
three very, very low probability prediction markets, so you have like three markets each individually trading at a cent, and you're buying a parlay on that, it would essentially multiply 1% by 1% by 1%. So
Who's
you're
gonna do
now at
that?
like I think that Polymarket should be able to do that. I'm not sure if there are maybe some regulatory implications when it goes from regular prediction markets to parlays. But I'm very certain that there are already some prediction trading terminals out there that offer parlay-like structures. And that is something, if we want to desperately replicate the upside, theoretical upside profile of meme coins, that is something that is certainly going to happen.
That's so interesting. So I'm very familiar with parlays from sports betting, and there's like it's been a chunk of my youth when I was playing football to also like with friends discuss about like their over the weekend bets and parlays and like all the crazy systems they had. Are they going to score more than 2 goals? Are they going to score in the second half? Are they going to win in the first place? Betting on a specific result. And then like having these crazy parlays, which was like 10 different things. And if you would hit the lottery, you'd win like $500,000 or something betting $5. So I'm very familiar with them in sports betting. I didn't even consider it in the context of prediction markets. I mean, that obviously verifies the thesis that it will be prediction markets are pure gambling, because that is kind of like the father of gambling, in my opinion. Interesting.
Do you have any sector you think that will be the big winner and one that will be the big loser of 2026?
Yeah, I think the irrelevance of VC-backed layer ones, layer twos, weird random ecosystems with arbitrarily obfuscated value propositions will go to zero. I would bet on innovation and capital to continue to form around Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana. I would also bet that the base ecosystem, because of the support from Coinbase, will continue to sustain, although I still think it's the least organic one. Prediction markets will continue to grow. I think we will see more and more third-party front ends and products built around prediction markets. I kind of feel like vibe coding could lead to the revolution of new front ends because it's very complex to build a full stack system. It's relatively easy to slap a JavaScript front end and like in front of some existing smart contract program or whatever you want to call it chain. So I feel like we're probably going to see single person companies that are essentially just crypto front ends that do something really, really cool, which are just like a JavaScript app with a database, which provide like an experience that we haven't seen before. That I also think will lead to the continuation of M&As. There's a ton of like bullshit crypto projects that raised money that don't have PMF, and I think that the M&A will continue.
I think on the side of, I agree that there's a natural demand for M&A that should grow in crypto in terms of companies being willing to be acquired or for them it making sense to be acquired. On the other hand, what I still struggle to see is like who would be willing to acquire them? Like essentially the bet you'd have to make is that most of these things that have zero product market fit, it doesn't make sense to acquire them for their product because there's nothing there. It doesn't generate revenue. It is probably like a imaginary solution to an imaginary problem. So the only ones that will get acquired successfully is where they have really stellar teams and also teams that are not just like contractors that could move on a minute after being acquired, but where you can make the thesis, okay, you're sort of acquiring intellectual property by acquiring this company. I think in these cases, it makes sense to.
So I think there's generally like two types of acquisitions in crypto. One type is, I'm exaggerating now, but you have like a vibe coded app, single person vibe coded app with a ton of traction and the potential of like millions. So you basically just like acqui-hire a very capable AI architect that is continuing to build under your umbrella. And then the other thing that you're right about is you have stellar teams that don't have PMF, but they know how to run a company. You know, they know how to manage engineers. They know how to like ship software. and you are struggling with shipping velocity in the era of AI potentially. So for you, it's actually very lucrative to onboard an external team to take over a certain piece of your stack and kind of like drive it with like higher velocity than your internal team is capable of doing it because of like many different factors, right? Like your internal culture has been around for a while. People have been leaving and retiring. You know, this meme where like, oh, I'm sad to announce that today after
Oh
3 years,
the
I'm like
vesting
vesting.
cliff reached by I think AZ Flynn. That's the like it is so hilarious. And
Let's
like
invite him.
yeah,
Let's invite him to the show.
I really enjoy that guy. I mean, it's just I wasn't even aware that so many people like wrote these I'm leaving, whatever, I'm moving on posts on crypto Twitter. And
Yeah.
it's just like it is so obvious. It's crazy.
I mean, it's obvious, but like some people he retweeted, I know. And I know that they didn't make as much as people think. It's like, yeah, anyways, I don't want to go into specifics, but it's not like everyone got a millionaire because of like their cliff investing being breached.
I think just to come back to the topic of major winners for 2026, I think the big winner of 2026 will be the FinTech X DeFi Convergence, specifically looking at projects like EtherFi and similar ones. Also, some centralized exchanges that are successfully integrating DeFi trading applications and all of these things. That sector basically runs all major trends that have been growing in 2025 and is just taking them to the logical conclusion. We finally established as a consensus that crypto is most suitable for financial applications. All the talk about using blockchains for supply chain, the whole like DentaCoin bullshit that started in 2017, like we have confirmed that this is completely dead in 2025. The explicit consensus is stablecoins, DeFi, transacting money around, shifting money around. That is the primary use case for crypto. I do think that an emergent use case, or like that is going from emergent to becoming more established and more talked about again, is the whole verifying humanity and like human verification, or also like integrity of AI verification. Basically, what WorldCoin and like that whole world chain ecosystem does. I'm not saying that WorldCoin will be the winner or the winning ecosystem of this trend, but I think that use case is going to become much, much more obvious and necessary in 2026 with the rise of AI generated content and just the, I mean, I'm seeing it in my own family. Like everybody who's 50 and older is basically completely illiterate in media right now. They cannot distinguish between AI generated slop and like some genuine information. It's like it's insane. I see them like watch Facebook Shorts or whatever that is called at the breakfast table, and it is some AI voice like telling them the most obscure bullshit, and they take it they take it for granted. It's just like there needs to be some type of verification in place. I think blockchain is suitable for that. But yeah, coming back to FinTech X, DeFi being the big winner, you see it with Stripe, you see it with like Revolut, Robinhood, etc. You also see the crypto native players like EtherFi. I do think that they are going to be the percentage-wise biggest profiteers off of stablecoin growth, DeFi front ends getting abstracted. I think on the DeFi side of things, Morpho is an interesting one to take a look at. I also think that Pendle is still, out of all the DeFi primitives introduced over the past years, among the most interesting ones. I also remain bullish on things like Infinify for the more DeFi native yield farming side of things, because they were the first ones who effectively introduced duration risk. And I do think that was just that was a 0 to 1 unlock in that fashion for DeFi. And they're still the ones who have captured that market. But yeah, on the big loser side, I'm not that confident. I mean, of course, there are various sectors will just continue to fade into irrelevance. May it be layer ones, may it be infra stuff. Not necessarily in terms of usage, but just in terms of their valuation and the market starting to agree that there's no reason for these to be valued at a multiple billion-dollar valuation. NFTs, I'm pretty unopinionated about. Meme coins, like, yes, I don't think that there's going to be a mania as in 2024, but just the mere idea of meme coins is not going to die.
So on meme coins, it's clear that there needs to be a change. Like, I don't think we will see another pump runner go to 1 billion lightly without them criming it. Like, meme coins were successful early on because they were very hard to deploy, and they formed kind of genuine communities around it. Since the scammers, ruggers, bundlers, extractors have caught up, especially around something like pump, it's just like, even if you have a good meme, it's gonna get vamped to death. And PvP culture and so on and so forth. But I think there will be innovation around memes that will potentially ignite them back. And we're already seeing something interesting, which is White Whale, which is basically highly supply controlled professional crypto person executing a meme coin. Honestly, it's very interesting to observe. Yes, they control probably 80-90% of the supply, but they're doing all the right things around it with regards to treasury management and listing efforts and community management. That is very interesting. The idea that you can catch a 3,000 market cap shitcoin on pump and it will go to 100 million, I mean, I think is, as of right now, dead. And because of all this like extracting PvP bullshit, I don't give that any high chances. But meme coins will never die. Like, even Tolly tweeted, like, what is dead may never die. Meme coins will never die. Meme coins will still be the thing that will generate the most returns. It will just look different. It will not be a pump token like it was in 2024.
Well, I think one interesting question for this year is going to be where the hyper speculation will move, because the desire, particularly in younger people, to hit a 100x, 1000x, whatever high multiple of their net worth is still there. I think the whole degen Spartan, you have to hyper gamble your way into wealth in a few years after college, otherwise you'll be stuck in like the wage cucked life for the rest of your life. It is still very much ingrained in the mentality of Generation Z. And I don't think that any of these economic trends that have first led to this way of thinking have turned around or are decreasing. I would say rather the opposite. Like, all of that is just like trend following, continuing to increase, not necessarily exponentially, but like there's no mean reversion or 180-degree turnaround in sight. So it's not to be found in altcoins anymore. It is also not to be found in meme coins anymore. Maybe, as we discussed previously, it's going to happen in prediction market parlays. But
actually, I have advice. I have investment advice. No, obviously not.
Also legal advice, also tax advice.
Legal advice. Send me your social security number together with pics of your... No, just kidding.
Do you need my credit card details too?
Private keys enough. Like, send me your 12-word mnemonic. That's enough. Make sure you create like a Google Drive file and clear text, and the link is public. Enter it into ChatGPT a few times.
I have it stored on my camera roll on my phone. I can just like send it to you via Facebook Messenger.
You know what's crazy? The amount of secrets OpenAI and Anthropic have access to in their logs, I am convinced, is mind-boggling. Secrets are things like keys or passwords or strings of text that give you access to certain applications or machines that are not supposed to be public at all. These things are supposed to be stored in environment variables or on, I don't know, hardware keys, and you name them. But like, one downside of vibe coding is it has access to all of the files, and including your .env environment files. And if you have secrets in there, it sometimes reads them. I mean, I'm sure there's ways to mitigate it from sending secrets over the wire to their servers, but 0%, or like less than 1% of vibe coders have that set up, I'm sure. Anyways, the point I wanted to make is not that. The point I wanted to make is actually I've never felt technology as a trigger and change that much like I'm feeling it with AI right now. I was too young for the first industrial revolution, obviously. I wasn't born. For the first internet revolution, I was a child. Like I was also too young. I was like starting to use those things. But now in my professional work, I've never felt the same level of disruption like I felt in the last 6 months, I would say. And I feel extremely enabled and extremely bullish for the future. But the skill set that will be relevant will change drastically. This idea that everyone should be a software engineer, I think now comes to fruition, although it's not becoming a software engineer, it's becoming a builder or like AI architect or AI user, whatever you want to call it. But this is, I think, the era we are stepping into. We are stepping into the era of the builder. And I don't want to like belittle it with calling it the idea guy or whatever. And I also like, I'm aware that there's a lot of issues that non-engineers today will have a hard time solving, but they will figure it out and the tools will get better. And everyone has, I mean, not everyone, but like most people have engineering friends or online communities that can help them. So long story short, even you, Max, I really think 2026, you should start to vibe code something. But don't do it for like a day or two. Try to do it for a month or two and build something slightly more complex. And don't copy what everyone is doing. Like, don't do like a trading bot or like some dashboard for crypto or what everyone's doing. Do something that like no one thinks about, like something that is very specific to you, whether it's how you process information or how you produce even this podcast, or I don't know, like hard to tell. But that's my like strong advice to everyone. Like you should vibe code something this year, ideally as soon as possible, because it's very, very real. And yes, you're going to send me the localhost link for me to try it. That's the meme, right? But that's fine. Like people will learn along the way and tools will get better. But I'm extremely excited about that. And I think agentic commerce is real. This is what we discussed last time. But like agentic commerce and like building for an agentic future is real. And I'm very excited for the era where non-engineers are able to build things because they just think different.
So you think the path to at least reasonable wealth in 2026 will not be altcoin trading and launching your own token, but launching your own vibe coded project?
Yes, but only if you're Frank D. Gods and you've scammed 50 million NFT sales before. No, jokes aside, this is the other thing I wanted to say. The best time to enter meme coins is now. If you look into the meme coins that were launched in the last 3 years, and you look into the ones that aren't dead, so not like anything under 100K market cap is, I think, like not qualifying for this. Ideally, like at least 1 million market cap. Like looking at coins between 1 and 10 million market cap of very active communities that aren't dead, where the chart looks like strong consolidation happened already and now it's accumulation slowly going up. That's how you make it in meme coins and not buying the Pico top when everyone talks about it, obviously. So I don't recommend buying even white whale here because it's supply controlled. You never know like when the selling cascade happens. But I actually recommend looking into good projects that didn't give up yet. And most gave up, by the way. Most gave up. And if it's like one person still tweeting about it, that's not what I mean. What I mean is like the projects that, I mean, look into their X communities. Most have like X communities now and Telegram groups and potentially Discord groups. If there's multiple people posting a day, rallying around like a small initiative, generating content, all while not being paid. This is very important. I think it's a pretty decent entry for like decent 10 to X trades in the next thing. Because again, meme coins aren't dead. Yeah, buying at like a minus 95% is obviously, I think, the best time to buy.
Minus 95, I guess, is the optimistic case. Most of them are minus 98, 99.
If it's minus 99, there's a good chance it's dead.
Mm.
Like Boden,
Oh man, easier times. Easier
that's
times.
that's nothing I would buy. It's just because like it was a temporal narrative, and like even AI 16Z, like those are the two examples where. So wait, let's check Boden. It's at 1 million market cap, but it was at. This is very important. It was at 1 billion. So 1 billion to 1 million is not good. 100 million to 1 million is fine. But 1 billion to 1 million is, I don't even know what to call it. AI 16Z is the same. So AI 16Z, 2 billion to 1.6 million. What the actual fuck, man? Like, nuts. Nuts. This is wild. Like, I mean, the good thing is like it's probably the bottom, but like it's not gonna do anything, I think. Yeah, that's the thing. Where's SPX at, by the way? I haven't checked the price in ages.
I still think that it's somewhere in the
550. 50. Still decent. I was on my computer when Murat shielded. And it was at 10 million. 10, 15 million, something like that. And I was like, "Ah, I missed it. Fuck it." And then it kept going up and it just didn't stop. And it was like such a weird experience. Yeah.
But yeah,
So
I think we've covered quite a few of the predictions. Do you have anything else that is controversial or you'd want to share, or do you think we've ran through the major ones?
no, I think we're good.
All right. It was great catching up.
Likewise. Speak soon.
See you.